Okay, so um, I wanted to give you some video instructions for your exam. Sometimes it helps if you actually hear me talk about uh, the exam verbally. Um, so originally, I was going to just give you a regular multiple choice test. Um, Face-to-face class, I give students a fill in the blank exam. It's important to memorize the terminology for these theories, and sometimes I find that if I don't give an exam that requires memorization, that students don't memorize the terms. But then I was thinking, um, because you're not doing a presentation where you actually create a case, um, I thought that instead of a multiple choice or fill in the blank memorized exam, I thought I would give you an exam where you actually apply the theory to a case. I think that you may get a lot more from this experience by applying the theories to a case. Now, I made the case somewhat generic, the case of Sam. There's just one case, and I did give you some details, but if you need more details, just make them up. You can be creative. It's okay to add to the case history to have a better therapeutic session for this exam. I just gave you the basics, but you can make some stuff up as far as the case is concerned. Now, here's the interesting thing, at least in my mind. You just have one client. It's the same case, but you've got four theories applied to the case of Sam, and uh, each one is used very differently with clients. So you're going to have four questions. Each one is a theory, and you apply each theory to the same case differently. So let me share my screen, and we'll actually look at the instructions. Let's see. Okay, and these instructions are typed and in a Word document in the contents for this week, and they're also uh, by the Dropbox. So you've got them in multiple places. Okay, so this exam's an application of your theoretical knowledge to one case using four separate theoretical approaches. The case will be presented first, depicting a client named Sam. There are four questions, essays, so they are essay questions to the exam. If you have questions, please email me. If you have any problems with the Dropbox, just email me your exam, the answers, just so I get it. But Dropbox is the best way because everything would be on D2L then. Just some bullet points. How would you use each of the four theories to help this client if you were his therapist? Each theory should be easily recognizable for each question. So if you're applying Freud to this case, I should be able to guess that this is psychoanalysis without you having to tell me. It should be crystal clear which theory you are using. Um, in order to do that, you're going to use extensive theoretical terminology so that I understand that you understand the terms, the vocabulary, the concepts behind the theory. And you're going to give me examples of how that terminology is used therapeutically with the client. Don't just say, the client, was experiencing some term. I need to know that you understand what that term means. So you have to explain why the client was experiencing some term. What are you going to do about it? So give me examples. So with each question, with each theory, you're going to use, and this is after you evaluate the client using terminology and begin to work with the client, you're going to include at least 2 techniques from each theory or interventions, and discuss how those techniques are used, how they might play out in a session. What would a brief therapeutic dialogue look like using those techniques? How would it work? What would the client say? What would the therapist say? What would just so you know, I realize that existentialism doesn't have a list of, quote, techniques, but it does have a lot of therapeutic goals. It talks about things like freedom of choice, responsibility, realization of one's own mortality, existential moments, existential anxiety, the existential vacuum, processing these terms and more with the client. That's existential techniques. Okay, so you're just processing and discussing these terms and applying them to the client's life, and of course finding meaning. So I kind of mapped that out just a little bit, but there's a lot more to it. Okay, well, at the end of each essay answer, what would 8 weeks of therapy look like? How might it fit in a treatment plan? Add anything from the theories that you think might be important in therapy. The case study is generic. You may create your own expanded client history to add depth to the therapy. You can be creative. You can add more to Sam's story, just so that you can expand upon the theory. I just gave you a basic case scenario. You can play with that. Please only use one theory, the theory that the question requests. Don't draw from any other theory. Each answer should be about 1 page double-spaced, but it can be more if needed. Please submit your exam in a Word document. Please don't use like Google Docs or anything like that. Use a Word document and submit it to the Dropbox. You can use your book. You can use your notes. You can use your PowerPoint, but don't copy from those resources. Put it in your own words. You can use the terminology, but don't copy anything. Apply the knowledge. Please don't use the internet. Just use the sources you have for the class. Let's look at the case. The case of Sam. I just made this one up. I didn't get it from anywhere. But you should be able to use all of the theories with this case. Sam is a 30-year-old male. He is physically healthy. He entered therapy with presenting problems that include minor anxiety, sadness, self-doubt, loneliness, a lack of personal meaning or purpose. He grew up as a middle child of two siblings. He was small for his age and was often teased by other children in school. He had a close relationship with his mother. However, his father left the family when he was 8 years old. I'm just making some minor corrections as I read it. And the parents divorced. He had a sporadic relationship with his father. During his teenage years, he began to experience some anxiety. He also had stomach aches and headaches. He desired a dating relationship but had difficulty connecting. He began to fear rejection. He often doubted himself. He loved music, reading, and visiting the Museum of Natural History, especially the dinosaur exhibits. As he became an adult, he often felt sad and lonely. He still desired a relationship. He held a variety of jobs, but none gave him fulfillment. He wanted to go to some higher education program, but was afraid of failure. At 30, he looked in the mirror and decided that he wanted a positive change. He decided to come to therapy because he believed that life should have more meaning. And you can add details to this case as needed for each theory. There are 4 questions to the exam. Each question will use the same case. Number 1, if you were Freud, how would you apply psychoanalytic theory in detail to this case? And of course, use all the appropriate terminology. Number 2, if you were Adler, how would you apply his theory of individual psychology in detail to this case? If you were Viktor Frankl or Rollo May, how would you apply existential theory in detail to this case? And I did write, though there are not specific techniques, you may use terminology and therapeutic goals such as freedom, responsibility, etc. Number 4, if you were Rogers, how would you apply person-centered theory in detail to this case? So I hope you get the drift of this. I hope you find that this is a meaningful exam, not just something to memorize and answer questions. I hope you gain something from the application of these theories and knowledge. And I hope it gives you some flexibility and creativity. I hope you get more of a sense of control over this exam, like, your success is within your control. I know it's going to take some time. And if you have any questions, please email me.